We're back, whole 9 yards here. Sunday night football just ended. Eagles and the football team. It's official. Washington is now in the playoffs. Pretty unfortunate for the Cowboys fans here, but I mean, yeah, it's this playoffs is gonna be super exciting with the new format. Two seed does not get the bye. And if I were the Bills and I were the Saints, I would not be happy at all. Pretty unlucky. I mean, Bills go 13-3 and don't get a bye. Like that's very unfortunate. But we'll start off with the football team and Eagles game. I mean, first impressions, Brandon, on that game.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't like lose interest in the game, but I definitely lost a little bit of interest after the Cowboys lost earlier in the day.
Yeah, I mean,
I was looking forward to watching the game. I still did, but I wasn't as focused on it. I guess it wouldn't have mattered because Washington won anyways. So I guess I'm kind of glad that we lost, so we didn't have to finish. We didn't have to finish with 7 wins and then still not make the playoffs. So I guess that wasn't. I mean, maybe the game would have changed. Who knows? But it's not the worst thing. But I mean, I kind of want to know what you're thinking about. I mean, halfway through the game, what was it, like third quarter, maybe even start of the fourth quarter, they took Hurts out. I mean, he wasn't great. He only had 72 yards passing and he had a pick, but he had two rushing touchdowns. And it was 17-14 at the time they took him out. So, I mean, did you think that Peterson just took him out? I mean, they said they wanted to see him have a chance. Nate Sudfield, I think his name is. I mean, that's
yeah,
obviously just a lie. They rather were doing it one because they just didn't want the Giants to make the playoffs, even though the team they were playing would have made the playoffs. So that's kind of weird. And that or two, I mean, he's supposedly staying as the head coach for next year, but maybe he's not, and he's just doing this as kind of like one last move just to get back to the organization. I'm not really sure.
yeah. I mean, there's multiple perspectives to look at this from. My first one would be from Peterson's perspective. When I saw Sedfeld going in, I just immediately thought, you know what, like he knows he's done. Like this is his last ditch effort. Like hopefully, maybe this kid just I don't even know. Like I really don't. Maybe he's just the next guy, and you just are super lucky, and you know what, you get to keep your job or something, and he just goes off. But I didn't really understand it. I don't think Hertz was playing poorly enough to get benched, especially for Sudfeld. I mean, what do you think would have happened if Wentz was active tonight? Like, do you think Hertz gets benched for Wentz, or do you think Hertz still gets benched for Sudfeld?
Sudfeld. I would say they if he does get benched, like if Wentz he was a healthy scratch. If he was actually suited up, I'd say they probably still go to Sudfeld. Honestly, I mean, it was a move that clearly showed they didn't want to win the game. And I mean, obviously, you could say what you want about Wentz, but he's clearly more talented than Nate Sudfeld or whatever. So if I would say they'd probably still go to Sudfeld, even if Wentz was actually suited up.
Yeah, I mean that'd be my assumption too. I'm just assuming that Wentz. I mean, he was a healthy scratch obviously tonight, so obviously he's just done. But yeah, I didn't really understand it honestly. I would have kept Hurts in there. I'm assuming you probably would have too. I guess they lost the
Yeah.
game, so hindsight's 2020. He didn't look good at all. I mean, he
I
definitely
mean,
wasn't.
he didn't look great, but I mean, the score was 17-14 and it really should have been 17-17. I mean, they went
Yeah,
fourth and they
that
were
would. I mean, well,
yeah.
I'm assuming you didn't like the fourth down attempt there.
No, I mean,
Yeah,
Jalen, he couldn't really pass the ball. That two things. One, if you're gonna go for I mean, one, you had 4 downs and Jalen didn't run the ball once, which is, I mean, he was 8 for 34, but he had two touchdowns running the ball. I mean, at least give him a shot. You're at the 4 yard line on any of those 4 downs, but especially on the fourth down play, that was I don't know what that was, but I think I think they were playing to lose. Like you don't go for fourth down there at the 4 yard line when it's 17-14 in like the third quarter if you're trying to win. That's a losing play, honestly.
yeah. I mean, I don't know. I guess it's another. We've talked about the analytics thing. I mean, I guess we've gotten into that before, but yeah. I mean, I think the biggest reason, in my opinion, to not go for it on that fourth down is if you don't get it, the momentum completely changes. And I mean, not only is the Eagles' offense not great, but when you're giving up easy 3 points like that, it just I didn't like the call at all. And because of it, or at least that's one of the reasons now, Washington's going to be heading to the playoffs. I guess so Washington's going to be hosting Tampa next week. Um, I guess, I mean, I don't know who you'd pick in that, but we'll talk about that probably in a future episode. But I mean, yeah, honestly, not an expected outcome for the NFC East for me personally. I don't think anybody going into the year predicted that Washington would be the division champs. I think if they were probably the least likely team going into the year. Like I think you could have said it could have been any of the teams other than Washington, and I wouldn't necessarily just have disagreed with that one. But I mean, yeah, I mean Chase Young is great. I mean their defense is good. Uh,
Yeah.
we'll see. I mean, I don't expect them to beat Tampa, but I mean, if they did, I mean, would you be shocked? Or I mean, I guess you kind of would be shocked, but
I mean, like, I guess I definitely would be shocked because I mean we saw Tampa play today. I mean, we'll see what happens with Mike Evans. He like hyperextended his knee, so I mean, I would say he probably plays next week, but I don't know. But I mean, yeah, I'd definitely be surprised, especially the way they've looked. I mean, Brady. I mean, we can kind of talk about this later, but I mean, he threw for 43 touchdowns this year, which is pretty crazy. This is probably one of his best years. Like, I don't know exactly what his stats are, but for him being 43 years old, now you can say the weapons are really good, but I mean, 43 touchdowns. I mean, I think last year Lamar led it with 38 touchdowns or 36 touchdowns. So, and he didn't even lead the league with touchdowns this year. So that's kind of crazy.
I mean, yeah, I would just chalk it up to their offensive scheme. Like, I mean, I would say there were many years in New England that he had like better years, even if statistically they weren't as dominant. I guess I don't know. Like
Well,
43
I
touchdowns
guess,
is nice, but I like
well, I
so
mean,
Brady. The most touchdowns Brady's thrown in his career is 50. I wouldn't even necessarily say 2007 was his best year, but I mean they didn't win the Super Bowl, so
I'm not really talking about like record and everything, but like just stats wise. I mean, he threw for almost 5,000 yards, 43 touchdowns. I think he threw for like 11 picks. Which I mean, it's not terrible, especially it was more towards early in the season when he was getting a lot of picks. So, I mean, stats wise, it was one of his better years of his career, especially for him being 43 years old. So,
yeah. I mean, AB looks pretty good. I don't know how much of the game you watched, but
yeah.
I think I mean we'll see how Mike what happened to Mike Evans. I mean, I would assume is he going to be good to go for next? I mean, I
I think
don't.
they're doing an MRI, but I guess we'll know tomorrow.
I'm
So
gonna assume he'll play next week in Washington, but if he doesn't, that obviously puts you at a huge disadvantage, especially where he gets a lot of targets in the red zone. But honestly, this offense is clicking. I mean, like you said, basically since the start of this podcast, you've expected this Bucks team to kind of get into gear around this time of year, and I mean, we'll see where you have them, but I'm assuming you'll have them at least in the NFC Championship game, like you said before. For me, I'm not exactly sure where to go. I mean, I'm definitely rooting for this team to win the Super Bowl. Like this is my favorite team in the playoffs right now. I mean, it's because of Brady, obviously, but I mean, we'll see. Like, so the Bucks went from 7-9, and this is quick, but the Bucks went from 7-9 to what? They are 11-5 this year.
yeah.
I mean, how much of that would you attribute to Brady being on this team now, and how much would you attribute it to just the overall roster? Because
Yeah, I mean, like I wouldn't say their team's definitely different than last year in that, like they've made some improvements on the roster, but like looking at just quarterback play, I mean, Winston had 30 interceptions and like 5 or 6 more fumbles. So like it's hard no matter how good your defense is to win games when you're turning the ball over 35 to 40 times over the course of a season. So I think Brady, his leadership and his professionalism, he just knows how to win games. That obviously helps, and it brings like a whole different culture to the Bucks, which they've never had since they became an organization. And then obviously his lack of turnovers. I mean, I think I said like 11 interceptions and maybe a couple fumbles, but it wasn't anything as bad as it was last year with Winston. So I think it's probably just a mixture of a couple of things. But I would definitely say that Brady's definitely the biggest difference between last year and
yeah,
this year.
and again, I mean, with Brady, like he's only looked better and better as the years gone on. There was a solid stretch where I want to say like the majority of those interceptions came within like a 5 or 6 week stretch where he was just
Yeah.
the offense just wasn't there. Um, but my last question before I move on would be, what do you like? So if Winston was the quarterback, what do you think this team's record would be, and would they be in the playoffs?
I mean, the playoffs, I'd probably say they were probably similar to last year. I mean, like you'd assume he wouldn't throw 30 interceptions again. that's just almost impossible to do.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna say he definitely cuts down on the interceptions and maybe the turnovers in general. I'm not sure, but I mean they finished 7-9 last year. I'd probably say they maybe finished 9-7,
Yeah. That's probably
which
where I'd have them.
yeah, which would they even get in the playoffs this year? I mean
Yeah, they
they
would. Yeah,
maybe
they'd be the last seed. It would just bump teams up
all right,
one,
yeah. So
be them instead of Chicago.
yeah, I mean I guess they would get in the playoffs, but I don't know, not much, definitely not better than this year.
Yeah, no, yeah. I think well, so first in terms of the receivers, like if you didn't have Brady, you wouldn't have AB,
Yeah,
right? So I mean that would
or
hurt,
probably
but
Gronk too. So
or Gronk, that's also true. So you'd really well, you'd have like Brait, but
yeah, because OJ Howard's out for the year, so you just have
yeah,
Evans. You'd have basically the same offense as last year. So
yeah, yeah. We'll talk about the Cowboys. I mean, obviously, technically doesn't matter because Washington won, but I mean, what are your takeaways from basically a playoff game?
yeah, I mean, I said it as soon as the game started, the first drive. They had like 4 or 5 missed tackles on the first drive, and I could just tell like it just wasn't going to be a good game. Just like on the first drive, missing that many tackles and just it didn't look like they really wanted to play. And then the Giants went down, scored a touchdown. I mean, that was like their first touchdown on their opening drive in like 5 games or something like that. Like, of course, that's going to happen against us in this game. Um, and then, I mean, Dalton, I mean, at the beginning, I don't know what was going on. I don't know if you were watching or not, but like he just couldn't throw the ball. Like, I don't know if his hand was wet or if he just had no grip, but like he literally could not throw the ball at all. Which definitely hurt us because Zeke, I guess he got re-injured again. I'm not really sure what happened. He like caught a 10-yard pass when it looked like we are gonna go score a touchdown, and then he just came off the field and was kind of in and out for the rest of the game. So I mean, I guess he was injured, but he never really showed anything. But I don't know. I mean, we had a chance to win, but we didn't deserve to win. We just didn't play well. The offense picked it up, but I mean, our defense was never great. Those 2 turnovers that they gave, I mean, they just gave it to us. It was a drop pass that led to an interception, and then a mishandle on the run attempt. I mean, those are 2 mistakes by the Giants, not 2 turnovers created by us. So I can't even really say that our defense played good at all. We had no sacks. I mean, if maybe we had 1 sack. I don't even think we did. No, we did have 1 sack, but we had no pressure the entire game. We just didn't play well, especially after these last 3 games. I thought we'd play way better. We just did not live up to what we played those last 3 games.
Yeah, I mean, I predicted the Cowboys would win this game. I thought that they were going to probably go to the playoffs. Obviously, didn't turn out that way. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be curious to see. The Cowboys offseason is going to be an interesting one. I mean, Zeke, Andy Dalton, Dak Prescott. Well, who knows what
Well,
happens to the wide receivers?
I mean, the question between Dalton and Dak, I don't know if you're asking it, but
I
like a
no no
lot
no.
of
I'm
people,
not saying like would you rather have either.
yeah, yeah.
I'm
I mean,
saying where does Dalton go? Like does Dalton,
yeah, yeah.
I don't think Dalton comes back as a backup, but maybe he
No,
does.
he'll probably look to get a starting job, but he'll probably get a backup job. But some people have been saying like they're similar quarterbacks, and why would you pay Dak like 40 million if you could play Dalton like
10,
10
5.
million?
Yeah.
Yeah, like for like a 1 year, even if you want to do like 2 years, you could do like 10 million. Like it's so obvious that Dak's the better player, and Dalton's not bad, but he's not as good as Dak is. It's so that's just a ridiculous question that
Yeah,
people
I
have.
mean I don't it's tough because like I've always had the mindset where Dak is like he's definitely a tier, maybe a tier and a half or 2 tiers below the Mahomes type of guys you pay 40 mil. So like it's tough if you were to pay him 40 mil, but I mean with this injury you're probably only looking at I mean I don't know 25 maybe
I mean, honestly, what I
30.
see them doing, I say, well, from Dak's point of view, I'd say he probably still. I mean, I think he was looking for like 38 million. He probably is still around there. I really don't see him coming down to the 20s.
Maybe not.
Um,
Yeah, I don't know.
and from the Cowboys' point of view, I'd say they probably try to franchise him again, or just sign him to like a 2-year deal. But I don't think Dak would do that. I'd be surprised if he did that. So they're probably going to end up franchising him again, which it's probably going to end up pretty bad because the last person who got franchised twice was Cousins. I mean, you can say what you want about him, but he left. So I hope that doesn't happen because I think Dak he's definitely a top 15 quarterback and he can be a top
Oh
10
yeah,
quarterback.
I
So
think he's probably yeah. I mean, he'd have to probably get worse for him to not be a top 10. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
I would say Dak is better than Lamar. I don't know if you would or not, or he's at least close. And we both had Lamar at around 10.
Yeah.
I think Dax at this point is objectively better than Stafford, who we had around that 15 spot when we did
Yeah.
that a
Yeah.
while ago.
Yeah. He's probably like top 12, but he can be
Yeah.
a top like 8 guy. He
Yeah.
can, but
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens to this offense. I don't know if it's going to be a completely different. I mean, we'll see what happens with the offensive line. Maybe
Yeah.
Zeke's just not even on the roster next year. I mean, I'd assume he is, but who knows? I mean, at this point, like we've seen running backs get cut just to and get paid to not even be on the team, like Gurley. So, I mean, yeah, we'll see. But I mean, we'll probably talk about the offseason stuff in a later episode. I mean, I don't know what other.
Well, one thing about the Cowboys, since they finished 6-10, we're locked in. I mean, all the draft positions are set. I guess maybe they have to do like coin tosses for some of them, but we're the number 10. We're number 10 in the draft order. So I mean, I have to look at the prospects and stuff, but the one guy that we definitely need and who's most likely going to be there at 10 is Patrick Surtain out of Alabama, the cornerback. We can talk about this when the draft's coming up and stuff, but just quickly, I mean, I think we should draft defense in almost every single one of our picks and offensive linemen. I mean, we don't need skill position players and we really don't need defensive line and linebackers. I mean, they're good, but they're so frustrating, but they're good enough to be there. So I'd say we just draft all defense, like secondary, maybe some backup linebackers and offensive line. But I think Patrick Surtain should be our number 1 pick right now at the number 10 spot.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't done too much research on the draft, so I'm not exactly sure yet. But we'll talk about the AFC. So, I mean, the Dolphins got pretty much killed by the Bills. They're out of the playoffs now. So, I mean, the wild card teams, you got the Ravens, Browns, and Colts. I think the best 3 teams got in, at least in my mind. I don't think the Dolphins were as good as either 3. I mean, that game was not great for Tua fans. I don't know
Yeah.
if I would label myself a Tua fan, but he just didn't look very good. The game was essentially, it was from the get-go, it was, can you beat the Bills in a shootout? And Tua and the Dolphins offense are just, they just can't compete with Allen and the weapons he has around him. I mean, so they don't make the playoffs, but at least from the Dolphins' perspective, this year, at least in my opinion, is still a very big success. I mean, Tua is one thing, but in terms of Flores and the rest of the team, you're going to have a team that's competing for the playoffs for years to come. I don't see this team not competing for the playoffs. I mean, so yeah, I mean, we'll see how good Tua is. I mean, this team has a lot of decisions to make in the offseason on whether or not Tua is their guy going forward. I'd assume he is. I mean, he just hasn't played enough for me to sell that. Yeah.
Well, I mean, knowing that you're more of a Tua guy than I am, I know it's only been 1 year, but do you think they still made the right choice in taking Tua in front of Justin Herbert?
I mean, I definitely have to say no at this point. Like, especially after tonight's game, or today's game. I mean, there's just no way I can say that. Like before today, and maybe before the past couple weeks, like I might be able to say that, but I mean, if Herbert's on the Dolphins right now, they're probably looking at a playoff spot. I mean, they're probably like an 11-5, 12, and maybe I don't know, maybe they're competing for the division title. Like that's how good Herbert's been and how much better he would be on the Dolphins. His stats would be better. This offense is, they're not star-studded, but they might be just as good as the Chargers offense. I mean, they don't have Keenan Allen, but still, I mean, yeah, I don't know. Like we'll see how Tua turns out, but definitely not a great first year. It's super surprising to me. I thought he was going to be like a lock. I thought he was one of those guys that's like he's going to be good, but he just hasn't. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I never really saw that from him. I think Herbert led the Chargers to 7 wins, and the Dolphins are definitely a better team than the Chargers are. So I'd say they're probably like 12-4, honestly. The Dolphins would be if they'd Herbert. So look, it's only been 1 year, so you can't say anything just yet. But I mean, right now it's definitely looking like Herbert was definitely the right decision. And I mean, it kind of comes into question, like I get kind of going back, like should they put Tua in I think it was the fourth game of the season. I mean, should they even put him in at that point, or should they just kept going with Fitzpatrick?
I mean, in hindsight, Fitzpatrick, right? Like you don't just bench a quarterback after starting.
Yeah,
I think it was 3-1, right?
they were like, I think they were like 2-1, whatever they were like at least
Yeah,
500. So I mean, it's
yeah,
not like they were like 0-3 or 0-4 or something like
yeah.
that.
No, it was not a point where you're like benching a quarterback just to see if you can like save the season. They had full control of their destination here. I don't know. Like at the time, I didn't think it was a horrible move. I thought, you know what, like you're not going to win the Super Bowl this year, so see what you have in Tua. So maybe I still agree that it was a fine choice. I don't think it was like objectively a bad call. You didn't make the playoffs, obviously, but I mean, if you keep Fitzpatrick in, do you make the playoffs? I mean, I don't know. I would say Tua probably sees the field as a starter, regardless of whether at that point in time you benched him for Tua or not. Uh, so I don't know. I don't think it was a horrible call. I still think this team needs a little bit more talent to fully compete with the Bills. If Tua next year can be a top 15 quarterback, I mean, then you're looking at a playoff spot. If not, you're probably not. That's just how it's going to be next year. Um,
Well, I mean, one thing that's going to help him with that, kind of going to another game, Titans Texans. I mean, Texans going from the Texans side. I mean, they lost, so and their first round pick goes to the Dolphins. So the Dolphins have the number 3 pick in the draft. I mean, again, we can talk about this later, but they could rather trade down and just get more assets to get more players, or they could take a wide receiver. They could like Devonta Smith or get uh, the offensive tackle from Oregon there to get another blocker for Tua. So they could do multiple things. And obviously, they went 10-6, missed the playoffs, but through the draft and probably through free agency, they're going to be looking to add players. So. I mean,
yeah.
as long as Tua can just improve, then yeah, they're definitely going to be a top team in the AFC.
Yeah, my one sentence answer on that is you drafted what is it, 5, whatever that is. I wouldn't
It's
trade
three.
down 3.
It's
I mean,
three.
yeah, there's
Yeah.
no way I'm probably not trading down. Uh yeah, but yeah, I mean, so I guess we'll move on from that. We'll talk about Rams Cardinals. I mean, such a weird game. Murray getting injured basically off the bat. Basically a battle of backup quarterbacks. I want to say it was the pick six from who was it? Who picked that? I forget whoever it was, but that basically was the game. I mean, both teams' offenses were inept. No Goff, no Murray. Because of it, I at least on the NFC, I don't think the best teams got in the playoffs. I still think the Cardinals are a better team than the Bears right now. Not saying that the system is. I'm just saying that. But yeah, I mean the Rams are in, so the Rams are going to play the Seahawks, I believe. That's
Yeah.
correct. Yeah, that's correct. The Cardinals are out though. I mean, to me, I didn't predict that. I thought the Cardinals were going to win. Which, if Murray doesn't get hurt in the first quarter, I mean they probably don't lose that game, right?
Probably.
So I don't know. I think it's super unfortunate. I was looking forward to the Cardinals in the playoffs. I thought this was going to be a year where the Cardinals, I think the Rams had it before they made the Super Bowl. It's just like a year where you're very inexperienced. You go in there, you're playing with house money. Then the next year you just come back and you dominate. You go 12-4, whatever, and you're competing for the Super Bowl. We'll see. I mean, I still think this Cardinals team's pretty talented. They've got some spots to fill for sure. But I think next year this team is a team that could win the division. Like I don't think the Seahawks are going to win the division next year. I mean, I think the Cardinals have every potential to do that. The Bears, it's honestly to me, I'm sad the Bears got in the playoffs. I just don't think they're a very good team. Um, they're going to be going to New Orleans to play the Saints in the wild card round.
Yeah.
To me, I mean, if the Saints were to lose wild card weekend against the Bears, then I think you start to look differently at Drew Brees and Sean Payton. They got the Super Bowl early, but ever since then they had those 3 straight years where they went 7-9, and other than that, it's been like playoff disappointment after playoff disappointment. I mean, a lot of the games they've lost against teams that they were favored against too. I don't know. I've already started to look at Drew Brees and Sean Payton slightly differently. Like I know some people like think Drew Brees is like the greatest of all time, and some people think he's in the same tier as like Manning and some others and Montana and maybe even Brady. I wouldn't have him there. I mean, this is a little bit off topic, but I mean, yeah, like the Saints really need to win next week. Obviously, it's the playoffs, right? It's probably Drew Brees' last year, but
Well,
that would kind of
they
tarnish their legacy. And like, I just
well, I mean, they came out with a report saying that this was his final year. So
okay, so it's his final year.
yeah, I mean that's what they
So
say. So
I mean, you can't lose wild card weekend against the 8-8 Bears, who I mean, so if the Bears win, they probably don't fire Nagy, and Trubisky is probably back for another year. But like, you can't lose against a team that earlier in the year we're literally going to fire Nagy and get rid of Trubisky and bring in a totally different front office and coaching staff. I mean,
yeah, no, that would be a bad loss. Like that'd be the worst one out of all of them by far. I mean, obviously you're playing the worst team that you would have played out of those last, like 3 or 4 years, at home, first round. That would be the worst loss by far. But I mean, yeah, I want to see the Cardinals in the playoffs too. I wish it would have been a healthy Murray. I mean, he's clearly injured. Like even if they would have made it, he would have been injured, so it probably wouldn't have been as exciting as it would have been. But I mean, we'll have to. I mean, honestly, for that division next year, I think you're right. I think it's really between the Cardinals and the Niners. I think the Niners are probably the best team in that division. I mean, they had so many injuries this year. You can't really look at their year this year, and they still, I think they were still 6-10. They ended off right. Yeah, they still finished 6-10 with all the injuries that they had. And every game that they played, except for like maybe one or two, they were in it basically till the end. So when they get Bosa back and Solomon Thomas, we'll see what happens with him. A healthy Sherman, he may be regressing a little bit, but he's still pretty good. Garoppolo, you could say what you want. A healthy Kittle. If they when they get all their guys back, I would say probably the best team in the division. But if Murray could play like he was playing earlier this season, where it looked like he was in the MVP conversation for a couple weeks, and they make some improvements, and Kingsbury's a better coach. I mean, next year's probably his prove it year. If they go 8-8 or 9-7, he's probably fired, I would say. So I would say they're probably the second best team. But if Murray could play like an MVP, then yeah, they could definitely win the division next year.
yeah, I mean the NFC West again, year after year, it's a super exciting division. Next year is going to be no exception. Yeah, I mean, in other news, I mean the Packers got the 1 seed. They clinched the 1 seed. That to me wasn't surprising. I predicted that would happen. I took the Packers, I think, as like 5-point favorites. Uh, so yeah, the Bucks. I mean, they beat the Falcons this week. I mean, we kind of talked about it a little bit. The offense is clicking. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what this Bucks team really does in the playoffs. It would be a shame if they go on the road and lose to Washington. That would be really unfortunate because I know for a fact if Washington wins in the wild card round, they're going to get smacked in the divisional round probably. If they have to go on the road. I mean, they're going to have to go on the road. So yeah, I mean, that would be unfortunate if Washington were to win that game. I'm super excited to see what Brady and the rest of them do in the postseason. I mean, in the AFC, the Browns are finally in the playoffs for the first time in what seems like forever. I mean, they kind of barely beat the Steelers. Again, it kind of reminds me of a lot of the Browns games before they had a couple of their really big prove it games, where it's like they're playing teams that they should beat handily, and they kind of let them stick in, and it takes them to the last second to win. And I mean, for me, still there was a time for a couple weeks where people were high in the Browns. People are still high in the Browns. I still am not expecting them to do much in the playoffs.
I mean, they do
They
get the
do. They get the
Steelers,
Steelers though. That is, yeah, they get the Steelers.
so
So it's are they going to be able to beat the Steelers? I mean, I don't know. We'll save the predictions again for the next episode, but
yeah.
I it's going to be close. I don't know if I would say you could argue that the Steelers and the Browns right now are the two worst teams in the playoffs.
I think that I think most people would probably agree with that.
I don't know. I think the Colts are probably also, but I mean, I don't know. I mean, but yeah, I think you could definitely argue those are the two worst teams in the playoffs right now. I still haven't seen enough from Baker to make me think that, he's going to win a game for the Browns. If they're going to win a game, it's going to be the running game. It's going to be the play action passing game where Baker just has to hit open targets. it's going to be the defense plays well enough for them to win. I mean, it's going to be. I don't think it's going to be Baker throws for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns and they win in a shootout against Big Ben. So I mean, yeah, we'll see on the Browns. I guess my hottest team from the AFC, and I think most people would probably agree with this, is the Ravens. They've won how many games in a row at this point? I mean, they
I think
basically
6.
six. I mean, again, there was a point where they were what, like 7-5, I want to say, even worse than that. But
I think they were 5-5.
they
I
might have been
mean,
5-5, and there was a very solid moment there where it was like, wow, the Ravens might actually miss the playoffs, and that was crazy to think because they, were the best team in the regular season last year, basically. Uh, but I mean, they started to heat up. Lamar Jackson has started to look like at least, a top 15 quarterback, where you could argue earlier in the season he wasn't all that great. He's starting to be at least a little bit more accurate, and the running game is looking great. They're still the best running team in the NFL. I mean, we'll see. The Titans got unlucky. I mean, they if I was the Titans as the 4 seed, that's the last team I wanted to play, really.
yeah, I mean the Ravens. Now I've been saying this for weeks that they're like if they could rattle off wins going to the playoffs and make the playoffs, they're probably. I mean, I'd say they're probably the third most dangerous team. Obviously, the Chiefs are 1, and you had to put the Bills at 2, and then the Ravens would be the third team. That's a
I mean,
team
there
you
might be
definitely
some there might be some that put the Bills at 1 right now.
you could put
There
the
are
Bills at
some.
1. I'd still put the Chiefs at 1 only because I think when they get Edwards-Helaire back for the playoffs, they're just a different team. I mean, like Le'Veon's clearly not the running back for their team, like Edwards-Helaire is when he's there. So I think that makes a difference. But I think it's Chiefs and then Bills who aren't that far off, and then the Ravens who also aren't that far off. The Titans, that's definitely probably the worst draw. That I mean, it's not the worst draw. Well, it probably is the worst draw you can get playing the Ravens. You would probably way rather play the Browns or the who else is it? The
Colts.
Colts. So the Ravens they're the hottest team going into the playoffs right now. That's playing it was in the wild card spot, other than the Bills, obviously. So yeah, that's gonna be a really tough game for the Titans.
Yeah.
And the Ravens were 6-5 earlier this year. They lost 3 straight. They lost to the Patriots, Titans, and then Steelers. That's when they had everyone on COVID, and then they
Yeah.
came back and won 5 in a row. So
Yeah. I mean, the Ravens team is dangerous again. And in the playoffs, it's just going to come back to, I think Lamar's passing game is going to be in the spotlight. Lamar has not won a playoff game yet. I mean, that's
no,
something that they're going to have to do if they. I mean, I know they're going on the road to Tennessee, but again, if the Ravens lose, that's not a good look for Lamar. The doubters are really going to start hammering on the whole, he might have some nice stats in the regular season. They might make the playoffs, but they haven't even won a game yet. Back-to-back years of probably getting upset by the Titans. I would say the Ravens are probably the favorites. I don't know if that's
I don't know
accurate or not, but
I don't know like what the betting line would be, but I'd say in most people's minds, the Ravens would probably be the favorites because their defense is way better and they're just hotter. So
yeah,
I mean, I'd say most people would probably have the Ravens as the favorites in that game, despite it being
yeah,
in Tennessee. So
yeah. So I mean, Lamar's gonna have to he's gonna have to win that game. If he doesn't, it's gonna be bad. I mean, that not only
and
looks bad on Lamar, but
he can't play good and lose. Like he's gonna have to win the game no matter what.
yeah,
Because I mean, last year he wasn't good, but then the stats looked good, but they still lost when they were obviously the favorite. They were 14-2 and clearly the best team last year. So he's really gonna have to win this game this year.
yeah. I mean, if he doesn't, it's gonna like Harbaugh wouldn't be fired, but Harbaugh would be, like you got to start winning now. Like you'd have to start questioning: is this offense built correctly? Obviously, it's worked, but is it set up for success in the playoffs? Is there just a regular season thing? I mean,
Yeah.
it's going to be, yeah, but I mean, do you have any other games? I mean, I think that's basically it. A lot of the games were kind of just, fluff games like Pats, Jets, Vikings, Lions. I mean, you know,
I guess
it's just,
well, I guess one more game we could talk about. More so not really the game, kind of just what's going to happen in the future for them a little bit. I mean, the Raiders won 32-31 against the Broncos. We've kind of talked about this with Derek Carr, but I mean, do you think that Derek Carr is going to be the quarterback for them next year? And again, I mean, who knows what happens
I
in the offseason and everything like that, but right now, do you think he's the quarterback?
like, do I, if I, are you talking if I'm the GM, or are you talking about like, do I think he will be?
Like, do you think he will be?
No, I don't. I don't even know why I asked that because I think both answers would be no. I don't even, I'm not saying, Carr is done or he shouldn't be a starter or anything. I think he could be a great starter for a lot of teams. I just think his time in Las Vegas is done. I mean, I just think it's better for both sides to move on. Uh, I think Carr can be a top 15 quarterback somewhere else, or at least, like 14, 13, that area. Is that in Las Vegas? Probably not. I think Gruden, for some reason, Gruden just loves quarterbacks. I mean, obviously, everybody likes quarterbacks, but Gruden especially, I think he wants somebody dynamic there. I don't think he wants just like not a game manager, but an average to slightly above average quarterback. I think he wants a young guy that he can, that's his guy. I think he wants his guy. I don't think Carr is his guy. So I think they probably try to look somewhere else now. I mean, what was their record? 7-9, 8-8, 8-8. So,
8-8,
do
yeah.
they have the draft position to go get Gruden's guy? I mean, I don't know. I don't know who Gruden loves. I'd assume, obviously he'd love to have like Lawrence or Fields. That's not going to happen. But, does he love Trey Lance? I mean, I don't know who he likes from this draft, but assuming there's some quarterback he likes, I don't think Carr is coming back. Worst case, I think they'd end up having to bring Carr back. I think you'd rather have Carr than a Dalton or a Winston or any of these other quarterbacks that are veterans. I don't.
Yeah, I mean, he still has 2 years on his contract, so I mean, like, and he's getting a lot of money, so we'd have to, see what happens with, like salary cap hit and like dead money and everything like that. But I would say if there's no better option in like the draft, because there's probably not going to be a free agent who's going to be a better option than Carr. If there's no better option in the draft, then you're just going to keep him, and then probably after next year, then you'd get rid of him. But if you like someone in the draft, I mean, 8-8, that's a top 15 pick. So maybe they can get like a Lance, or maybe, I mean, Zach Wilson's probably going to be pretty high up, but you have to see, is he going to be like a top 7 pick? Like, are the Falcons going to take a quarterback maybe?
I
Or
mean, there's no reason the Raiders can't trade up to that position. Like, I mean,
yeah, I
so
mean, if
they
they
can
really
definitely
like
trade
Zach
up to
Wilson,
7. They could trade up to
yeah,
7 easily. It's just they're not going to get Fields or Lawrence unless they're willing to give up their next, 6 years of first round picks. But
yeah.
yeah, I mean,
And then, I mean, I guess that's probably all with the games, but I mean, we did get head coaching news, at least today, and we'll definitely get more tomorrow, being Black Monday. So the Jets fired Adam Gase. I don't think that was,
I
surprising at all.
mean, I wonder if it was surprising to Gase. I wonder if they told him anything.
It may
Because
have
I
been.
don't think, I mean, Gates wasn't like, I don't know, he just didn't seem like he was anticipating getting fired. I'm sure he probably was, but
I think, I mean, again, like I live in New Jersey, so I hear all the New York stuff. I think earlier in the season, like even when they were 0 and, 10, 11, 12, 13, I think he still thought he was coming back. But it seemed like these last couple weeks, I think he knew that he was going to get fired. He changed a little bit. So it seemed like he knew, they told him that he was going to get fired.
yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's anybody that thinks that was a poor move. If, getting 2 wins at the end of the regular season mattered to you. I mean, if anything, he did, that was bad for the organization. Obviously, Gaze is still trying to win the games, but yeah, I mean, I think ultimately, I think that was a good fire. I don't think anybody would doubt that. Who do they look for in the future? I think it depends really on who they draft. Uh,
Well, I mean,
because
they're going to have to get a head coach before they draft someone.
well, no, but what I'm saying is like,
Oh, like, do you like, if they're going to take a quarterback, like they should get an
like,
offensive guy,
so
you
when you're
mean?
hiring, like, I don't think you're getting one of the premier offensive young guys like a Lincoln Ryan. I don't know who it would be, but you're
There's
not
really
getting
no one
somebody
out
like
there.
that with Sam Darnold as your quarterback. I think if you say, we're drafting Fields too, or we're drafting whatever, like, you would definitely get more interest, at least in
Well,
my mind.
yeah, I mean, the problem is there's really no great coaching candidates this offseason. The best ones, I mean, Robert Saleh is probably the best one. And he's obviously a defensive guy, and
Yeah.
it seems like the Lions are going to get him. Just hearing stuff, it seems like the Lions want him. So he's probably going to go there. I mean, there's no Shanahan, there's no McVay. Maybe a college coach comes up, but I mean, there's
Doesn't
really
seem
no,
like it. Yeah, it doesn't
yeah,
seem
there's
like
no
it's gonna
like
happen.
premier coach who's going to come in and be like, who you think could be like your head coach in the next like 10, 15 years. So
Yeah, I mean, I'm certain that if Saleh goes to the Lions, he will be a horrible head coach. I can say that without a doubt in my mind right now. But I mean,
I
not
think
really
it would
maybe,
more
but
be because he's the coach of the Lions more than
oh
him
well,
being a head
exactly.
coach.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
but
mean, I
a
think
little
no
bit of both
matter,
though. I mean, I don't know, but
I don't know. I think he's more. He's like I think he's a better culture guy than they thought. They thought bringing Patricia in was gonna be like a culture guy and be able to just bring a good culture, like a Patriots culture, and be able just to lead them to like wins like that. I mean, clearly just wasn't a good enough coach, and also the roster wasn't good enough. But I think Salah is a better version of Patricia. I don't know if you would agree with that, but I think that's kind of what
he's
they.
different. He's different.
I mean, the 49ers, I mean, with all their injuries, I mean, they still were a top 10 defense this year. So,
The only thing that scares me is they're both defensive coordinator guys. I mean, is
yeah.
it just essentially Patricia, but instead of the Belichick attitude, it's the players coach attitude? You know, the Pete Carroll almost type of just like, I'll motivate the players and, we'll have this type of locker room. I don't know. It seems like it might be too close to Patricia. I feel like you might want to go an offensive coach. I don't know. Like defensive coaches seem a little bit harder to pull off. They seem like they have a little bit of a lesser success rate, at least today. There's really not that many great defensive minded coaches in the league right now. I know obviously Belichick is a defensive minded coach, but to me, the Belichick culture and the Patriot way, it's not, you can't replicate it anymore, regardless of any assistant. I mean, Flores, he's probably been right now, I would say he's the most successful Belichick disciple. And the culture he's created down in Miami is really not close to what Belichick has in New England. I just think that what at least talking about Patricia, the reason they failed is I think he just tried to go Belichick from day one. And he brought in a lot of Patriot guys, which I'm sure he thought would help. And maybe it did, maybe it didn't. But they just had no established, winning record. And it's hard to be like Belichick when you don't win. I think that's what makes Belichick Belichick, is he's able to do all this stuff when he's one of the greatest coaches of all time, if not the greatest. And you know that if you just trust in Belichick and do your job, that you're going to be competing for a Super Bowl. Patricia just wasn't that way. You're coaching for the Lions and you've done absolutely nothing. I mean, yeah. But I mean, it'll be curious to see how the head coaches turn up. I mean,
Well, I
other
mean,
than Case,
yeah, I was gonna get into that, but one more thing for Detroit. They're probably moving on from Stafford after this year. So, and they're right now the position for seventh for the draft. So they may look for a quarterback, which I mean, maybe that changes what head coach they want. But, yeah, I mean, other head coaches, I think like that's kind of what you were getting to. I'd say, I mean, kind of just looking at the teams, I'd say probably the Chargers. It seems like they're gonna fire Anthony Lynn, which is definitely the right move. He's not a good coach. Other than that, I mean, looking at the teams, I mean, there's already a couple teams without a head coach. It seems like the Bears are probably going to keep Nagy. Right now, I'd kind of be surprised if they did fire him, no matter what happens in the
yeah.
playoffs. The Broncos, they said they're bringing back Fangio.
I mean, I don't necessarily like the move, but
Yeah, he'd most likely get fired after next year.
it
And
just feels like you're delaying the inevitable. But
yeah,
I mean, who knows?
the Jaguars, I mean, they haven't fired Doug Marone yet, but he'll be fired tomorrow. Uh, Other than that, that's probably it, though, I'd say. I mean,
It's
unless
weird to
Doug
think.
Peterson gets fired, but again, they said he's coming back. So, I mean, maybe that the reports are wrong, but it seems like he's probably going to come back.
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to, is there a better head coach available right now than Peterson? I don't know. I mean,
I mean, probably not.
probably. I don't know. Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, is their team even good enough to like win the division? Like, I mean, I know how bad the division is, but you'd assume it'd be better next year. It'd have to be better. So, are they even good enough to get to like 10 wins? I mean, they won 4 games this
I
year,
think they
so
are. Depends on the quarterback, but
I think they're going to make a lot of
in
changes
this
this
division,
offseason.
I think they're good enough to win it. That's what I'll say.
No matter who their quarterback is next year, I think they're going to make a lot of decisions this offseason, especially defense. They have a lot of older guys on defense, and I think they're going to probably cut loose a couple
I
of
mean,
those
what's Fletcher
guys.
Cox's contract situation? He's not a free agent next year?
No, I don't think so. But I mean, I know like Brandon Graham. I'm pretty
Graham
sure.
as well. I mean, they've got a lot of old people or old or aging players. I mean, yeah, we'll see what exactly happens. It really depends on the offseason, but I think if they wanted to try and win the division next year, I think they could. I cannot bet on I cannot bet that the winning team in this division next year has 10 wins. I don't know that that's true. I think the winning team could have 9, maybe even 8. I mean, I'm not going to say that this division is going to get that much better. I mean, it really just comes down to the Cowboys, at least in my mind.
Well, the one thing that I would say 9 wins is probably the least, but one thing that helps. I mean, look, I mean, I know I'm a Cowboy fan, but they definitely have the most talent out of all the teams in the division. I don't think you can really question that, but they finished in third place, like officially, I'm pretty sure. So they'll be playing a third place schedule. So that definitely helps. I mean, there's going to be games where you're going to be playing most likely worse teams, and I mean, Washington's going to be playing a first place schedule, so they're going to be playing tougher teams next year. So that's going to help. I would say the winner probably is 10 wins next year. Unless, I mean, look, every single quarterback got injured or benched. So,
That might be the most likely scenario, but I don't think it's like a lock. I would not be surprised if the Cowboys won the division at 9-7 or 8-8.
I mean, like I said, I think 9-7 would be the floor, but I think the
Maybe. I mean, I don't.
yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess we'd see, but I don't know. I'd say 8-8 would. I'd be surprised if a team was
Like,
eight and
are
eight
the
one.
Giants getting any better? I mean,
Well,
marginally,
it's
but
that really
not.
comes down to Jones. I mean, like if he's going to be able to be a good
He's
enough
not.
starting quarterback, then well, that's exactly what it is. I mean, their defense is good. And I mean, Saquon. You could say what you want about Saquon. I'm not a big fan of him, but because he's going to come back next year, so it's another weapon that you have. So if Jones is going to be like an average quarterback to like decent, then I mean maybe they could win like they won 6 games this year. Maybe they could win like 7, 8 next year. But I
I
think the
mean,
Cowboys are
exactly though. That's what I'm saying. Like,
yeah, but I think they would probably be like I think them and Washington would probably be like 8-8, 9-7, 7-9, and then I think the Cowboys would be like 8-8,
yeah,
nine and
maybe.
seven, 10-6, and then the Eagles would be kind of like five, depending who their quarterback is, 5-6, maybe 7 wins. I think it'd be more competitive, but I think it'd be better records overall. That's
If
all.
I'm the Eagles, I'm not gonna tunnel vision into looking to win the division next year. Like, I'm trading older assets for picks if I can do it. Um, but I mean, at the same time, like, if the most you can get for, we'll just say Graham is a 6th rounder, I mean, then I'll just hold on to him and see what I can do next year. I mean, because at the same time, like, you can hold on to Peterson, but if you trade all your players away and then you just have Peterson with nothing, I mean, I guess you're just tanking next year for nothing for whatever. But I mean, we'll see. We'll see. I think any team in that division can win it. Like, I would not be shocked if the Eagles won the division, and then that's probably you would disagree with that, but again, the Cowboys have always been inconsistent. I still don't love McCarthy. The Giants, they're getting marginally better at best, in my opinion. Washington, I mean, yeah, like you said, they're playing a first place schedule. Alex Smith isn't getting any better, that's for sure. I think he probably regresses. And
Yeah.
the quarterback situation, it's going to be tough. We'll see. The offense in general probably going to be tough. The best player you have there is Terry McLaurin, who's good. The defense is going to be better next year for sure. It's going to be probably a top 10 defense.
Well, I
Um,
mean, it already is a top 10
I
defense.
know it's going to be. I mean, I don't know if it but probably be top 5. I mean, we'll see. But yeah, I don't know. I think any team can win the division, but we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, I would say that pretty much wraps it up, unless you have anything
Yeah.
else to say.
No, I mean, that's it. We'll so next episode we'll do the official or whatever playoff bracket predictions.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm excited for that episode. It's probably going to be one of my favorite episodes that we've done so far. I mean, the predictions, and at least in my opinion, those are fun to do. Yeah, I mean,
Do we
we
want to
might.
give update on our predictions from this week?
Oh yeah, I mean, so technical, our last regular season week. So I ended the season above 500, 26 and 25. I mean, Brandon, I'll I'll let you say your record, but
I mean, I went 18-32. Nothing. I mean, not great at all. Terrible. I actually went 3-2 this week, which
yeah,
may be my best week out of all the weeks. I'm not sure, but
I ended up going. I think there was one week we both went 4-1, but I ended up going
yeah,
4-1 this week. I was right on Bills, right on Pats. I was wrong on Dallas, but I was right on Tampa and Green Bay. So I ended up going above 500 this year. I mean, we'll predict the playoffs as well. I mean, I'm not going to bunch it on with the regular season necessarily, but
yeah.
I mean, yeah, I mean, overall, I mean, solid start to the podcast, So, I mean, yeah, I mean, I'm excited for the playoff predictions, and I mean, offseason NFL is going to be super interesting this year. I mean, there's plenty of teams that are moving on from quarterbacks that they've had for multiple years. I mean, we talked about the Raiders. We'll see what happens with that. The Lions. I mean, Stafford's been on that team for what 11 or 10 years at this point. I mean, it'll be interesting to see where they go.
At-
Garoppolo,
Atlanta.
Brady, Breeze,
We know
Ryan,
we know Cam's not coming back for the Patriots.
Cam's. Well, we don't know it, but
Well, I mean they said it, so
okay. I'll say this. I think there is a chance Newton ends up coming back.
I mean, I
I
guess
mean,
you have
this
to
is
see
just
the
me as a Pats
options,
fan,
but
but that's exactly what I think. Is I think
I mean, it's
I
definitely
just
not going to be Stidham. So it's either going to be a free agent or someone in the draft. Like maybe they start Cam and then put like a third rounder in there or something. Or maybe
there
they
will
take him in the
be a
first
free
round. I
agent
don't know.
there regardless. There will not be a rookie with Stidham and Hoyer. Like that's not happening. So I mean, we'll see, but I would not be shocked if Newton came back at all. I know the Schefter report, but Schefter's been wrong on many things before with the Pats. I mean, we'll see. Like we'll see. Who would be better than Newton right now? I mean, if you
I mean,
could get
maybe
Stafford,
Stafford.
if you could get
Yeah,
Stafford, I mean that'd be better.
he'd be a good bridge quarterback.
Yeah, I mean he'd be a great bridge quarterback because
Yeah,
he's still a top. I mean, what's his floor next year? I
he's
mean,
he's a top 15 quarterback.
yeah.
Like at his worst, he's number 15 at his worst, and he's definitely
Well, I don't know about at his word. I mean, I would say
at his worst. I'd say he's top. He's definitely number 15 at his. I mean, like at his way worst. Obviously, maybe a couple picks up, but I'm saying like he's not outside the top 15, no matter how he's really playing. I'd say.
what I was saying is he's at his very worst. He's probably like 18, like going into next year. I don't think he's a bottom 20 guy. He's definitely not. I mean, but what
I'd
we
say,
agree. We agree essentially that he's a
yeah,
great bridge
we
quarterback. I don't think you get like Carr. I mean, we'll see, but again, I mean, this offseason there's going to be so much. I mean, there's going to be a lot of people moving teams. It's going to be
yeah.
like an NBA offseason. Bunch of quarterbacks moving. Breeze is. I mean, I don't. Breeze is done. I guess I didn't actually see that report, but if Breeze is done, I mean, he's done. Then we'll see. Is it
We'll have
Hill?
to see what
Is it
happens.
Winston? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, we have to see what. I mean, that's what. It's not just one report; it's a couple reports. So, I mean, maybe unless something happens in the playoffs, that changes his mind.
like
But
if the
I'd say it's
Saints,
probably
I mean, if the
Sauce.
Saints lose to the Bears, like I don't. I mean, I guess
Could you
Breeze
even
could
go out
retire
on
on it,
that?
but I mean, if I
I
was
mean, I
Breeze,
think
I
you'd at
wouldn't
least
want
have to
to.
win one game to go out.
I
You
mean,
know,
yeah, we'll see. But I mean, again, this offseason is going to be crazy. It's going to be crazy. I don't know if it's as crazy as last season with Brady moving, but I think there's overall more moving players this year.
yeah,
We'll
yeah.
see. I mean, so many teams, so many teams. There's so much that it's going to be crazy. Even the Chiefs. I mean, we'll see what's going to happen with the Chiefs. It might not necessarily be next year, but I
It'll be one
mean,
of these years where they'll have a lot of
it's
breakup.
yeah. I mean, I'm excited for that because I don't like the Chiefs, but I mean,
I don't mind the Chiefs yet. I guess we'll
I
see,
think
but
people. I think if they win the Super Bowl this year, the hate will start to grow.
it will.
People are
Yeah,
going to
if
start
they
to hate
win the
them.
Super Bowl this year, it will definitely start. Definitely.
Yeah. I mean, but yeah. I mean, I really hope they don't win the Super Bowl this year, but. I mean, I think I'd rather see the Chiefs win it than the Bills. I don't, not that I hate the Bills, but
Well, would you rather see the Chiefs or the Packers?
oh,
Only because the Packers is the Rodgers thing.
yeah, I hate the Rodgers thing.
Yeah. So I mean, would rather
I
the
mean,
Chiefs? I mean, because I mean, I don't know if I mean, look, I'm not gonna say this for Mahomes, but he's definitely on the path to be as great as Brady is,
on
no
the
doubt
path,
about it.
yes,
So I mean,
for
if he
sure.
wins 2 Super Bowls in 2 years, most likely 2 Super Bowl MVPs, and he's only like what 24, 25. I mean,
He'll have done what Brady did, but he would have had more to do with them winning, basically.
yeah, I mean, one regular season MVP and this year a top 2 finish. He's probably going to finish second. So
Yeah. I don't know. I guess I'd rather see the Packers win it because regardless of what Rodgers does, most likely he's not going to be, unless he just rattles off like 3 more Super Bowls and 3 more MVP. Like he's just not gonna. But
yeah.
I don't like the Packers either. I mean, again, I'd obviously love to see the Bucks win it. That would be, oh my god! Imagine if the Bucks won the Super Bowl. I mean,
That'd be pretty crazy. And it's definitely possible. I mean, they're the 5 seed, so would they play?
so I mean, they'd have to.
They'd most likely play the Packers in the second round, right? I'm assuming they win, and then like the Saints and the Seahawks win, they'd probably play the Packers then.
Yeah. So yeah, Saints beat the Bears, Seahawks beat the Rams, Bucks beat Washington, Tampa would go to Green Bay, and then it'd be what, Seattle playing New Orleans.
Yeah. I mean, if I'm Tampa, I'm hoping that's
the case. Would you rather play Green Bay or New Orleans? I'd rather play Green Bay if I'm the Bucks. The Bucks
I'd rather play New Orleans because it's almost impossible to beat a team 3 times in one season. That's very hard to do.
I mean, but yes, it's hard to beat a team 3 times in one season, but when you've already done it twice, it doesn't really mean anything to me.
But also, one was the first week of the season. It's almost a throwaway because it was new team, new everything. And then the second time, that was right before the bye and right before they're a completely different team from just then to now. So
that is true.
I'd say you'd rather, and you're in a dome. I don't know. I'd say you'd probably, for me, I'd rather play the Saints than the Packers.
Okay, I mean, fair. I think honestly, I think I could go either way with it at this. I think if you said, I'm not going to completely disagree with you going Saints. I don't know. Maybe I lean past. I'd have to think about it, but I mean, yeah, like I guess I'm fine with whichever one. I just want to obviously win against Washington this week. If you don't, then you could consider firing Arians if they lost to Washington?
I'd say no, unless like Brady has a guy in mind, because like whoever the next coach is going to be, it's Brady's going to have the say. So unless he has a guy in mind, I'd say no. I'd be surprised.
I mean, if you're a college coach, are you considering coming up to coach for Tampa Bay if they were to fire Arians? I mean,
if Brady were to say yes.
Oh, exactly. Like, I mean, what if? I mean, not Saban. Like, Saban's not going to leave, but
he's not. One, he wouldn't leave, and two, he's not an NFL guy. I mean, he tried. He's not an NFL guy.
I mean, he tried, but it's the Dolphins.
But even still, like especially now, he's college. It's so different. Like coaches like that can't transition to the NFL. It's the young guys who can. Like Matt Rule, Lincoln Riley, if you wanted to. Guys like that.
I mean, if you're Lincoln Riley and Tom Brady says, "Hey, like, I'm willing to fire Arians," like, I mean, I could do it myself. Like,
I mean,
let's go do it. Like 2 years, and then you got 2 years of me. And we'll draft a quarterback this year, and he'll develop under me. He'll be my next TB12 he'll be the next TB12 guy to represent the brand. And then you've got another 15 years of greatness. I mean, who knows? I mean, like if you're Lincoln Riley, how do you turn that down? I mean, I guess you'd say tough. Like I'd rather coach at college, but like,
yeah. Again, this is looking a little. I think this is fantasy, but
yeah. But I don't know. I mean, but anyways, to answer my question, would you fire Arians if they lost or no?
No, I wouldn't.
I probably wouldn't either. But I mean, if I could get Lincoln Riley, I might. But yeah, I mean, I probably wouldn't fire Arians. Anyways, I mean, that's really it.
I mean, like we said, the next episode it's going to be playoff, like Super Bowl predictions, and also we'll probably do awards also, right? I mean, regular season's over, so we might as well just do it. So we'll do MVP, Offensive Rookie of the Year, Defensive Rookie of the Year, Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, Head Coach of the Year.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna listen or watch an episode, I think next episode's a good one to tune into.
That'd be a good one. Yeah.
I mean, realistically, the next 5, 6, 7, 8 episodes are going to be great with the playoffs, with still NBA stuff,
MLB, offseason signings will be happening. I mean, they're going to have to. It's already January, so I'd say the next month. I mean, The Harper Machado thing went all the way to the end of February. I'd be surprised, but I'd say the next month, probably next like 2 weeks, I'd say people get signed. So
Yeah, I mean, again, it's gonna be a very nice next few episodes. Other than the prediction stuff, I mean, that's I mean, I don't know that's it for this episode at least.
yeah,
I mean, overall solid NFL season. Yeah, I mean, unfortunate the Pats and the Cowboys both kind of garbage. I mean, really,
yeah. I would
pretty
say it's
bad.
pretty surprising that neither of our teams made the playoffs this year.
Yeah, I mean, had Prescott not got injured, that would probably not be the case.
Yeah, no, we definitely would have been in the playoffs.
Yeah, but I mean, you guys probably lose first round anyways. But
I mean, maybe.
I mean, you're
For,
playing the Bucks. I mean, I don't know. Like, would
we'd only
you?
lose because our defense would be so bad. That'd be the reason. So
Yeah, I mean, yeah, probably. But anyways, I mean, that's it. Appreciate
yeah,
everyone who stayed till the end. We'll be back Thursday. All right.